You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we are. I am Kirk M. Samuels.
And this guy over here is Jason B. Kendrick. Uh-oh, he's slow again.
And we are the
Yeah,
Mad
hear me?
Men
Use
of
your headset.
Masculinity, baby.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations with messed up Wi-Fi for you. So the way it always goes. Every time we get on, man, it just starts getting slow. It's like it's like the man is trying to keep us down. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
man's trying to keep us down. So tonight, yeah,
something,
this
man.
is fun because yeah, no, tonight will be fun because whatever the Wi-Fi does, we'll make it work. You know how we do. But Kirk sent me this list from that was actually in the B Men group. It's 21 struggles for men most women don't know about. Somebody, I mean, there's a couple that are kind of funny, but most of them are like, oh yeah, that's for real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are things, man, that are part of being a dude, man. That that a lot of them we don't even think about, man. But a lot of them are like, yeah, man, the struggle is real. And so right up front, man, I'm gonna say, I don't want to hear no, it goes both ways. I don't want to hear no, yeah, but what about women? But we go through this, but we go through that. We are here talking about men's stuff, and you can, I mean, if if you want some insight, it'd be great. If you're not a dude, maybe you want to sit back and just kind of listen and like just take it in and just receive it and just accept it as what our experience is, and not try to be equal or get equal input or whatever. I mean, if you got an opinion, cool, but I can already hear, but women go through that too, or women have to, but women, and what about us, and well, yeah, well, that one goes both ways and all that kind of crap, man. I don't want to hear none of that, man.
Yeah, no, this is just, we talk about it all the time. We speak either for men or to men, and this one's really a for men one, just a little bit of education. It's not whining. This is just us dropping a few nuggets about, things you don't think about that on a day-to-day basis men struggle with, or maybe have to put a little extra thought into. I mean, what should we just like read the list and then go back, or should we do it like one at a time?
I think we should just bounce around, man. I think any one of them that stands out, I say we just bounce around and just kind of pick them off and see how many we get through, man. But this is a list that popped up on social media, and I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, no, it is kind of interesting because I mean, what's funny about it is, yes, these are all struggles, and a lot of them you don't even think about. I think it's almost one of those unconscious things that just, as a guy, you think about it, but then it's almost like you don't think any other dudes deal with that. I mean, like the first one's kind of funny, but it's true. Like the art of handshakes, calculating at light speed the exact force needed in order to squeeze another dude's hand just right when doing handshakes. I mean, I had that today. I was like, was that too hard? I don't know. It's like, and then you think about it, especially nowadays with ladies being more and more in the workforce and being more masculine, and you want to shake their hand too. And you're like, but you don't want to crush the poor girl's hand. So I mean, it's kind of funny, but it's true.
I mean, there's a buried joke in here somewhere about, there's a lot of times where we got to worry about, is it too hard or too soft? You know what I'm saying? We always walk that fine. This is not in the list, but, just thinking about that, maybe we walk that fine line of, am I too hard right now or am I too soft right now? And it's like,
yeah,
as a guy, you got to be, you got to be strong enough to be hard, but not to, I mean, that's just part of being a guy, man. We walk that fine line in a whole lot of different ways, man. Of, are we too hard or are we too soft, man? and the handshake is one of them. I didn't think about that till just now, but when you said that, I was like, yep, a handshake is just one of those examples.
It is. I mean, it just shows how you got to walk that fine line of, like you said, strength, or you want to be strong and vulnerable, or strong and soft, or whatever the case may be. But I mean, and that goes right into the second one, which is interacting with children. I mean, especially nowadays, I love kids. I love playing with kids. I mean, kids are awesome. They're honest, they're truthful, they're hilarious. But I mean, you got to be careful. You go like, I want to say I love kids. They're cute and da, and then they're like, oh, are you creep? Are you creepy? It's like, no, I just want to
Mhm.
hang out
Mhm.
with the kid. I'll go over here now because I can't even talk to kids, or laugh at kids because I might be creepy.
Yeah. I mean, that is, man. That totally is, man. That's one of them things that again, it's the fine line. It's the fine line that we got to walk. We need to be relatable, we need to be connectable, we need to be all these other kind of things, but not too much. Not too much of this. If you go overboard, then it is what it is. I'm gonna jump down. There's a couple of these, man. I mean, there's several of these that I
Yeah.
definitely want to hit. Is one of them is the aggression from other males, and it says facing aggression from other males for nonsense reasons. Every guy wants to show how hung he is by beating up someone weaker. And the reason that stands out to me, and there's several of them that do, but this one just literally happened to me the other day, man. Like 2 days ago, I was at a stoplight and I was turning right. And I don't know what it is about Colorado drivers, but people love to try to pass you in the middle of a turn. Like I'm turning right, and the guy behind me, he wants to like he was guessing at where I was going, and he picked the wrong lane to turn into. Because once I turned and I put on my blinker to get over, like you're supposed to, but apparently he jumped straight over to this other lane. Stupid, right? So I look in my rearview mirror, and this guy's doing this all that other kind of stuff, and I mean he's freaking out in the car. It's just him in his car by himself, me in my car by myself. And so then the guy's like freaking out. Then he jumps over to the lane that I didn't get into, and then he's giving me all the gestures and all this other kind of stuff, right? And so then I look forward, and not 100 feet in front of us was a red light, and so I'm like, oh, this is gonna be good. So the dude was he was in the other lane. I pull up, next to him at the red light. And now, mind you, I got like tinted windows or whatever. You can still kind of see through, but I got tinted windows. So I like slowly pull up next to him, and I just turned and just looked over at the dude, and he looked over at me, and he's doing like the what you want, like what like he want to fight, and I'm like, yeah, grow up, man. What kind of kid are you, man? I mean, what you gonna do? Get out of the car and fight because you turned into the wrong lane behind me? I mean, and now all of a sudden we both at the same red light. I mean, it's like, come on, man. I mean, what do you got to prove, man? And for a while I thought about that thing, and I was like, man, that's how. First of all, that's how people get shot.
Mhm.
Because you don't know what somebody else got, and most of the time, people that carry are not the people that are the most aggressive in any kind of interaction, right? And so I'm like, first of all, that's how people get shot. Second of all, I was like, dude, are you okay? Like, you got something going on, man. I mean, maybe you need a friend. You want to talk.
Yeah.
Like, guys going through enough
You need a hug?
stuff as it is, man. Last thing we need is to be going after each other. But we got all of that kind of underlying aggression from a guy, that just happened to me like 2 days ago.
Mm. Well, it's funny because a lot of times, and I mean, this has been my experience too. A lot of times, the loudest guys, the ones that are the most aggressive, are the ones that are most fearful. The ones that are most afraid, and the ones that most kind of cowardice. So sometimes just a smile and a shake of the head, like, really, dude. I mean, come on. But it's funny because that even goes into like what number 4 here, the misconception of appearance. Looking intimidating, being a big dude, having tattoos, big beards, things like that. Like you get this a lot with bikers. They look all intimidating stuff, but they could be some of the nicest guys in the world. But just because they have that look, and so they're judged a certain way. I mean, shoot, um, I mean, it just happens. I mean, that's just people. They stereotype, and they just say, "Oh, well, he looks a certain way, so he's got to be X, Y, and Z." And then they don't take the time to get to know him. I mean, that dude cut you off, or did all that stuff. I mean, if you actually like decided to get out, like you're having one of those days, like, all right, let's go. He might have changed his mind pretty quick.
He probably would have,
But yeah.
man. I mean, like I said, you got windows up and you doing all the jumping at somebody, man. You ain't trying to fight. I mean, that guy ain't trying to
Mhm.
fight. He's just trying to be tough and trying to prove something, man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's always funny to me. I mean, I think that's one of the things like you always, especially as a guy, you want to be able to take care of yourself. You want to, and especially because when you can take care of yourself, then you don't allow those things to bother you. You just kind of like, all right, dude, whatever. It's the ones that can't and are worried and scared that tend to do that stuff. But yeah, it's funny. I mean, you get these guys and they're just like, what you want to do? It's like you don't want none of this.
Mhm.
But anyway, it's so funny, so funny. That goes back to
And it
what's
was
the
a
other one, the
joke,
school
man. I mean, I'm
bullying.
looking at it.
Yeah,
I'm looking at this dude, man, and it was. I'm looking at this dude, and it was comical, man. And it was like, what are you, a kid? Like, what is this, middle school? I mean, we grown ass men, man, and jumping like you want to fight at a red light over something stupid, over like, over turning behind somebody. I mean, ain't nobody getting an accident, ain't nobody, cut nobody off or hit nobody and nothing like that. I'm like, I was looking at the dude just laughing, man. I was like, man,
yeah.
what a dummy, man. You know how stupid you look right now?
Yeah, I get that a lot, especially, driving truck for the day job. I mean, people just they make up whatever they thought happened and make up their own little thing and they have freakouts and you're just like, okay, I usually just smile and wave, like, all right, be freaked out. It's funny. Let's get back into the list. One of the things, there's actually a couple here that are they're almost the same. There's the economic pressure and then the pressure of financial worth.
Mhm.
There's the economic pressure of like feeling like I can't provide. I have a job and the pay's pretty good, but I'm supposed to be making more and it's never enough. And then the pressure of financial worth, it goes in the same, kind of same lane where it's like your worth is based on how much you have or how much you can provide or how much you can give. And so it's not about who you are as a person. It's not about your heart. It's not about how good you are, how stable you are, how calm you are, whatever, how you can handle problems, how you can do all these things. It's just like, oh, well, you don't have $1 million, so I don't care. You ain't nothing.
That was actually exactly where I was going to go to next, man, because a lot of these have to do with that kind of pressure, and not only is it economic, but it's just the pressure to provide. It's the that's basically how the society judges us as men in terms of basically it comes down to that paper. Do you have that paper or not? And what does your paper look like? And we like to think that our heart matters and all these other kind of things to society, but when it comes down to it, if nothing else, the feeling is I'm only worth what I can provide, man. And that's that's the impression that you get. And so yeah, you're right. A lot of those do kind of tie into the not only the economic pressure, but just the pressure to provide. And if you don't
Mhm.
provide, then you're less than a man. And I think a lot of that
Yeah.
has to do with career and all this other kind of stuff. And unfortunately, I do think women get stuck in this thing. But to me, that's a default of women jumping into the competitive workforce and and also kind of competing in those same spaces. But at the same time, I don't think women still have the same pressure to provide, um, you know, for their family or for the person that they're with that men have.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to we talk about hypergamy, and I mean, even the ladies making the bank, making the money, and they got all their own stuff. Majority of them still want a man who makes at least the same or more. So then these guys got to come even bigger to be felt, to be thought of as worth the time and attention. And so there's just this unspoken worth generating. They like, okay, if I don't have that much money, if I'm not an Andrew Tate or Bill Gates or whatever, then I'm just not worth it. And I mean that's just not the reality of the world. I mean, was it the median income is like $45,000 for most men in the US, but I mean, a lot of ladies are like, oh, he's got to make six figures. He's got to maybe be a millionaire. Well, good luck. That's like 1% of the population or less.
Yeah. It's so funny because you took the one that I told you I had. I had one that's not on the list, and the one that's not on the list is hypergamy. That's something that men, that's part of the reality of being a man. That's not part of the reality, or maybe it's part of the reality in a different way of being a woman. When it comes to relationships and dating and all those other kind of things, to your point, a woman is pretty much not going to date down. I mean, if she's going to date a man that she thinks is a step up in some kind of way, whether it's a step up in looks, a step up in status, definitely a step up financially. But hypergamy in the relationship realm in our culture is real, man. I mean, and I say, guys, guess what? Know where you are, be comfortable where you are, and who you're looking to date. Don't ever try to date up in terms of a woman. If you're all, if you're all fascinated by how beautiful and how hot she is and all this other kind of stuff, and you just drool over her and all that, you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose in a whole lot of ways. First of all, she's not gonna respect you, and all these other kind of things. Hypergamy doesn't work the other way. If she doesn't goo goo gaga over you or want to get to wherever you are, in life, then it's out of balance. So I would say hypergamy is not on this list, but it's definitely something that we deal with that women don't deal with.
Yeah, I mean, most men don't care. They don't care how much you make. They want to know, are you feminine? Are you friendly? Are you compassionate? Are you caring? Are you supportive? And then, that's why you see millionaires picking up girls at McDonald's and Starbucks. And I mean, and that goes right into, there's three on here that are basically the same thing, but they're different aspects of the same thing. But ignoring health concerns, the isolation and mental health issue, neglected mental health, these are all things that most men deal with silently. There are some of us who have done some work and we know that we need to talk about this stuff. We go to therapy and whatnot. But even in those cases, we keep it quiet a lot of times, especially from the fairer sex, because it's just assumed that we will be looked at as weaker. We will be looked at as less than, because just like everybody else, and that's one of the things I think why I love doing this show is that we're shining a light on the fact that everybody's struggling. This curated Facebook, social media, plastic perfection thing ain't real. Everybody's struggling with something, and we're just highlighting some of the things that men struggle with that just aren't talked about quite a bit. And the mental health issue, I mean, the isolation of mental
Mhm.
health, that's huge. For most of us guys, we don't feel like we can talk about our mental health. We don't feel like we can talk about our health concerns. We don't feel like, because we talk about those things and we'll be perceived as weak, or at least that's the general consensus out in the world. And so we don't. And then there's a lack of help for men. There's thousands of battered women's shelters. And the last time I checked, there was one for men. And it's 50-50 when it comes to domestic violence. Women are just as capable and culpable when it comes to domestic violence as men are nowadays. So these are the things we deal with. We have
Mhm.
mental health issues. We isolate. We don't talk about these things because we don't feel like we can.
Yeah, I don't even know if this is a word or not. I think it is, but if it ain't, then whatever.
It
But
is now.
I'm gonna call it a gynocentric culture. And what I mean by gynocentric culture is a feminine centric culture, where the things that are feminine seem kind of get the most focus, the most any of those kind of things. And where I'm going with that is feelings tend to be the core of value, and how we feel, how everybody feels about this. I mean, my identity and my whatever, how I feel, and things are. I think that's why we have a huge identity crisis in a lot of ways in our culture, because they're so feeling based. Well, men generally aren't feeling based. And so it takes a lot for us to get into the feeling space, and especially to admit that we have feeling involved in any particular scenario. And so we tend to get on the back burner our the need and the value for our mental health. I mean, when you go to a psychologist, when you go to therapy, the question is, how you feeling today? And it's like, well, wait a minute. I mean, it's really hard for me to tap into how I'm feeling, because when I go outside these doors, the world don't give a slam about how I feel. It's same thing in the home. It's like I'm supposed to be a feeler in the home and in a relationship, but guess what? When I step out these doors, and even to some degree inside of this home, my feelings are irrelevant. That's why the divorce rate is so high amongst lesbian couples, because it's so feelings based. It's two women, two feelers, and nobody's stoic, nobody is structured, everybody's fluid, and how I feel in and out, and all these other kind of things. And so we do kind of miss out on the value of how we feel. You don't even hear a lot of guys. And matter of fact, even in the manosphere, there's, even in that red pill community, there's a pushback in men talking about how they feel and talking too much about feelings. It's like, no, you're just supposed to be a dude. You're not supposed to be a feel. And so we do get kind of left out and put on the back burner in all of those in terms of how we feel in the feeling based culture, the feeling based society.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have an education for men about feelings for the most part. We're told to stuff them. Plus, what I'm seeing, and I've seen a lot, and it's starting to come out now. A lot of the therapy and a lot of stuff is more feminine centric, like you were talking about. It's about feelings, it's about loving, and men deal with things in a different way. I mean, a lot of times we just want to feel respected. We want to feel purposeful. We want to have something that we're contributing. And if we don't feel those things, that's where the depression comes in. That's where why when we're in relationships and we can't provide, we get depressed. And then we go into therapy and they want to treat us in the same way the ladies want to be treated. They want to be hugged and loved. We want to have answers. We want to have a way to fix this situation so that we can become a provider and be the one out there doing something that generates respect. And so sometimes even when we do therapy, it kind of it's kind of a non sequitur because it doesn't necessarily dare with or deal with how we feel and how we heal our feelings or how we, you know, tend to generate our own self-respect, and that usually comes from doing something, providing something, and go and can go back to like the pressure of financial worth. Like if we can't provide for our family, and how many divorces end because of money issues. It's either the bedroom or or money. Maybe it's those are the stresses that cause abuse or the breakdown. But women need to be loved, men need to be respected, and how we heal our emotions and how we heal our traumas a lot of times is different. Yes, it's nice to get hugs. Yes, it's like to talk about our things and try to express our feelings. But sometimes it's just a matter of, can you respect him even when he's feeling emotional? Can you respect him? And I tell you what, there's way too much evidence to show that, nowadays ladies say, no, be emotional, show me your feelings. I'm here for you. But then when a man does, it degrades her respect for him. And then so it's antithetical to the actual healing process.
Now, I'll tell you again another real life example, and I'm pretty transparent. I had a scenario just here in the past week in my relationship where, it was the communication. There was some disagreement, whatever, and details are irrelevant. But the point is, I intentionally kind of, I don't want to say took a step back, but in explaining where all of this was coming from for me, my explanation was, you know what? I am a man, but I'm also a feeler. And I mean that some of that is my personality type, right? I'm a feeler. Um, I'm ENFP, right? And so I'm a feeler, and that made me feel when you did that, that made me feel this kind of way. Now, I didn't act out of those feelings, or I tried not to as much as possible, but to communicate, you know what? I felt that, and this made me. I mean, and basically to humanize me in the context of the conflict that was going on. Like when you did that, even though in your world you were responding to something that I did, but when you did that, that made me feel this kind of way. And so what you saw was me feeling, this kind of way, and so that was me in that circumstance. The reality is though, men have a tendency to feel in silence. Men have a tendency to feel in isolation. And where I'm going with that is that I think that's the reason why addiction levels are higher amongst men, because it's a way to medicate feelings. It's a way to feel different. I think that's why self-canceling success anyway is higher amongst men because we deal with the feeling. We have a tendency to deal with the feeling in isolation. I think that's why, generally speaking, porn consumption is higher amongst men. It's getting close, but it's still because that's an exercise in feeling different. And normally that's something that we do in isolation. And so I think these kind of things are examples of why and how men feel, but we have a tendency to feel in isolation. And I wonder if we feel in isolation because it's not safe for us to feel in community. It's not safe for us commonly to feel in relationship. And so these are the kind of things though that are struggles that men have that women may not be able to relate to.
Yeah, I don't even know if you know, you just nailed number 12, the unspoken emotional turmoil. Nobody to confide in. If you're struggling, society expects you to just push
Mm,
through it and don't show your emotions. And that's how most of us deal with it. It's like, well, I'm feeling this thing. I'm not sure how to explain it or to heal it or to deal with it. So the best thing for me to do is to isolate and then medicate. And that's how most men deal with it. And
mhm,
it's rare
mhm,
to have a social space where that's okay for most men. What tends to happen is we
mhm,
have to find specialized spaces, therapists,
mhm,
12-step programs. Got to get with your dudes and one-on-one and be like, dude, I'm struggling. And it has to be a close relationship with somebody who's also doing the work. Because even in guy circles, if you're trying to confide in a dude that's not doing the work or hasn't ever done any work, and all he's trying to do, he's doing the Irish therapy, drink it and stuff it down, drink it and stuff it down, just stuff and drink. And so if we aren't around somebody who's also doing the work, also has some awareness, then it goes unspoken. We can't speak about those emotional traumas. And
yeah,
it's
mhm,
and I think one of the things too is like, and it goes along with some of these other ones, like the rarity of positive female attention, the joy of simple affections, the silence of appreciation. These are all things that men deal with where we want to, respect is love for men. And part of that respect is feeling appreciated. And so often, and we talk about it so much, when we get into relationships and it becomes, the marriage and the family, and it becomes like, okay, we have roles. You as a man, you got to provide, you got to be the strong backbone, you got to be the structure, but then we don't get appreciated for it. All we hear is, well, you didn't do this, or you're not doing that right, or we need to do better, or you need to make more money. And there's no appreciation. We even had a discussion today at work, a lot of us, because every day we come into work, it's one more thing that we didn't do right, or one more thing we got to, do better, or the numbers need to come up. And, it's always like this negative bias that we're dealing with. And all we want, men are pretty easy to please. Respect us and appreciate us and give us some quiet time occasionally. I mean, it's not hard, but we don't get most of those things. We tend to be left to our own devices with no support. And then you wonder why we get silent, we get cold, we get shut down, we isolate, and then we end up disappearing or dying from heart disease or whatever because there's no outlet. Most of us just don't feel like there's any outlet for us.
mhm. Yeah, we absolutely, that's again, that was kind of one of the main ones I was going to hit to before we jump off of here was appreciation. Men get used to the lack of appreciation. And if you don't agree with that, then you're not paying attention. Look at how we look at Mother's Day in our culture, and then look at how we look at Father's Day in our culture. I mean, we look at how we forgive our, we can forgive moms easier than dads. A lot of us have mom issues, and but look at how we treat that. And again, I think the biggest one is Mother's Day versus Father's Day. A lot of times, on Father's Day, he ends up doing some cooking. Or a lot of times on Father's Day, yeah, you take the kids and you got to go fork out some money to take your kids out for your Father's Day. And a lot of times kids think Father's Day is about them. I mean, these are things that we deal with, especially just in terms of appreciation. And along with that goes the whole idea that, kind of what you just said, when is enough enough? When am I enough? When am I, you know, fulfilling enough for you? When am I whatever? It's kind of the general feeling of just not enough in some kind of way.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, a lot of it is comparison bias that we deal with because of social media and the media. And so just being a regular person isn't good enough anymore, apparently, today. Everybody's got to be millionaires and rock stars and all this stuff. And it's just not the reality of the world. And so for the feminine kind of bias that is going on, because, yeah, everything for the most part that ladies are going through is taken seriously or at least given attention. For the most part, what guys go through is just funny. Quote Bill Burr, like, some guy gets his penis cut off and thrown, out the window. Oh, hey, Stumpy, it's funny. But, imagine if some guy cut off some
Mhm.
woman's breast and threw it in the dryer. the world would shut down, and so it's just not there's not a safe space, and there's not a lot of attention going to the struggles that men go through, even the silly ones like handshakes and interacting with children and body image, the dad bod thing. There's not a lot of positive body image stuff for guys. And all guys are supposed to be 6 foot tall and have six-pack abs and look like whatever Jason Statham or something like that. But when they don't, then they're just shamed. They're just called, hey, big boy, whatever, hey, fat guy. But there's no body positivity towards men. And so they end up suffering in silence, like most men, because there's not a lot of outlets, there's not a lot of support, there's very little appreciation. So if you like men, if you want to have a man in your life, respect him, appreciate him, and give him a little time with his boys, a little quiet time. You're going to see a whole lot of that man becoming the man you want him to be.
Yeah, I think I'll leave it off with one that's kind of here, but then also it's a bigger picture, and that is any guy, especially a guy that has been in a long-term relationship, or a guy that is a husband, dad, and all that kind of the man of the house, all that kind of stuff. No, a lot of men feel disposable. Like, my job is just to basically grind the axe and be ground down. If there's a bump, go see what it is. If there's a spider or a snake, go kill it. Pump my gas. I mean, we're there seeing it disposable. And, one of the evidences of that in our culture today is the fact that still comes down that, man, every 18-year-old male has to register for the draft, but no female has to register for the draft. There's no consequences to do that. And, and so as men, we are, everything is supposed to be, it goes both ways, and everything is supposed to be equal. And everybody, wants equality on this and that. I want equal access to this and that. And I want the same, whatever, the same opportunities and all that kind of stuff. But you never hear that brought up in any kind of election cycle. You never hear that brought up by a politician of, you know what? Why don't we have the draft open to every 18-year-old? I tell you what, in Israel, they do. I mean, everybody goes into the military. And so, you never hear that. And I think in our culture, men are seen as disposable and seen as, something that is a catalyst to get from wherever to wherever. And so these are the kind of things that, to your point, we're not necessarily trying to solve anything today as much as just highlight the fact that, we're all going through the same stuff. If you feel like any of these, you're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah, not only do we feel disposable, but we are afraid that we're disposable, and we're treated as disposable because all we see is, oh, well, there's so many options out there. If you don't do X, Y, and Z, then I'm just gonna go find some other dude that will. And if you want a man to be trustworthy and be there for you and be the one that's there for you through thick and thin, you got to be there for him. It's that simple. I mean, it's 1 + 1 is 2. It's not really hard, but that's not what we're seeing today. What we're seeing is men are disrespected, not supported, and made to feel disposable. And so many of them are just checking out. We just did the 33 episode. 33% of men are just like, why? There's nothing in it for me. Why be in relationships? Why get married? And so all you ladies that are like, where are all the good men? Well, they're probably in your friend zone, or they're just at work or something like that. They're just trying to survive and keeping their head down and just doing the best they can. So these are some of the things that men struggle with. This is not a wine session. This is not a oh woe is me session. This is what it is. This is the reality of the world today, and we're here as the Mad Men to educate you a little bit, so that if you like men, if you want to like a man, you might learn a little bit about that man and maybe be a little more supportive, a little more respectful, and a little more appreciative of everything he's struggling with and going through. And until next time, we are the Mad Men. Like and subscribe. Hit that little bell icon so you know when we're posting. And we are out.